Russia and Ukraine are in Istanbul for a new round of peace talks. The countries returned to the table after weeks of deadlock. Both sides arrived in Istanbul under tight security. Russian media says top diplomats from Moscow and Washington spoke by phone ahead of the talks. Meanwhile, Ukraine wants a ceasefire, prisoner releases and the return of deported children. Russia is expected to present a memo with its terms, but key differences remain. The talks mark a tense turning point in the war. This meeting comes hours after a major drone strike shook Russia. Ukraine claims it destroyed over 40 military aircraft deep inside the country. President Zelensky calls it Kiev's longest range operation yet. Ukraine says 117 drones were used to hit multiple air bases, and the targets included long-range bombers and radar planes. The strike, codenamed Webb, took over a year to plan. Kiev claims it launched drones from inside Russia itself, with the damage Ukraine says could total $7 billion for Moscow. Let's hear what Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, had to say on the attacks.
Офіс нашої операції на території Росії знаходився безпосередньо поруч з управлінням ФСБ Росії в одній з їхніх областей. Загалом в операції було використано 117 дронів і відповідна кількість операторів дронів працювали. Вражено 34% стратегічних носіїв крилатих ракет на аеродромах базування.
And yes, so we've got the news that both Russian and Ukrainian officials have arrived in the Turkish megacity of Istanbul for these direct peace talks. The second round of direct peace talks after the first a couple of weeks ago, which saw a 1,000 prisoner swap, the largest of the entire war. Obviously, hostilities remain high between the nations. Trust remains low. Ukraine is trying to find a temporary ceasefire. We've seen plans accepted by Ukraine for a temporary ceasefire in the past. Russia has rejected these ceasefire plans. We have, however, seen in the past ceasefires projected from Russia. They included over Easter, in which both sides were they both accused the other of violating them on both sides. And then we saw Moscow's VE Day parade, where there was less accusations of violence. However, there was blasts reported in the Kharkiv region. Once again, Russia said it had no part in them, but that was during the VE Day celebrations. Donald Trump has spoken about these negotiations and said that the US is ready to step back from these negotiations if they do not proceed, and we don't see any developments in them. It's been very frustrating for the US mediation team, who previously had a promise from Donald Trump that he would end this war in 24 hours. That, of course, has not happened. And we've seen this conflict go on and aggression increase as time has gone on. We've seen deadly attacks from Russia on civilians over the past few months, one including in the city of Sumy, where we saw a massive 34 civilians killed in the eastern Ukrainian city of Sumy. Donald Trump has been widely spoken, mainly on his Truth Social platform and on Air Force One, about both Volodymyr Zelensky, but also Vladimir Putin. The US president has received a lot of criticism and for warming to Vladimir Putin, which of course his predecessor was a staunch opposition to the Russian president and his actions in Ukraine. But today, the two warring sides meet for a second round of direct peace talks, something that we thought we were so far from, but now the two meet in Istanbul, mediated by Turkey, where they had their first round of direct peace talks back in 2022, when the war first broke out, and we will see how this develops. We move on to our next story. We are joined by Daniel Wagner, CEO of Country Risk Solutions, located in Colorado. Daniel, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Pleasure to have you as always. This is obviously the second round of peace talks. Judging by the dialogue surrounding this second round, how do you think it's going to go? We obviously saw a possible meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky before. That didn't happen. We saw low-level delegations sent first by Moscow and then subsequently by Ukraine. What hopes do you have for this round of peace talks in Istanbul?
I have to say I'm not very optimistic, and I can't imagine why anyone would be. The two largest attacks of the war have just happened in the last few days, perpetrated by either side on the other. So it seems like they're almost going through the motions by agreeing to meet. I can't imagine that they have any grand ambition for reaching a meaningful or long-lasting ceasefire when they're both attacking each other with such ferocity, and it's happened just in the last 24 hours. So I wouldn't discourage them from meeting, but I don't expect anything much to happen.
Yes, and Daniel, obviously Russia is set to give Ukraine a memo of its key demands during the war. Now, there's no doubt that there'll be territorial concessions in that memo. What kind of things do you think that Russia is going to expect from Ukraine? Now it controls about 20% of Ukrainian territory since the war began.
Yeah, I don't think that Putin and the Russia side has changed their list of demands much at all, nor do I expect it to change much in the future. They want to retain the territory that they've got. They're positioning themselves to have a stronger negotiating position in these peace talks to the extent that they continue. And I would be very surprised if they make any meaningful concessions. As for the Ukrainian side, well, they've already said that they're looking for a long-term, even permanent ceasefire. And they've said that they're willing to give up some of the land that has been lost. I don't know that they're willing to give up everything that has been lost, but of course that's what a negotiation is for.
Yes, and obviously on the backdrop of this we have Donald Trump, the man who promised to end this war in 24 hours. That hasn't happened, but he is now expressing frustration over the lack of progress of these negotiations. As you've said, hostilities have risen. We have seen some of the largest attacks of the entire 3-year war since these negotiations started. How do you assess Donald Trump's actions and ability to negotiate an end to this war?
Well, Trump sees himself as a peacemaker. He sees himself as someone who can bring parties together, and that's what he's really trying to do. He's gotten so frustrated with Putin because Putin isn't cooperating at all. And I guess it remains to be seen if in the next 24 hours, either of the parties end up walking away from the table, because it wouldn't surprise me at all if they basically say there's no point to meeting. If they do continue to meet and there is some sign that both sides are sincere, I suppose there's a hope and an expectation that it might last a while. But again, I think Trump's position is you can bring them together, but you can't necessarily make them, dive into the water for peace. So let's see what happens.
Yes, Daniel, thank you very much.